Hello, everyone. Welcome to Driving in the Dark. This is a special segment that I'm calling Discography Speed Round, where I'm going to be taking a band whose back catalog I'm very familiar with and trying to review every single one of their albums in order in 60 seconds or less. And I'm going to start this off with the Magnetic Fields, legendary indie pop band from originally from like the Boston area, probably best associated now with New York City. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. I honestly probably listen to them more than I listen to any other artist just because they have so much stuff and it's all so good. And Stephen Merritt, who writes all the songs from the Niagara Fields, is just personally my favorite songwriter, period. So this should be a pretty easy way to start this. Let me know if this is something you enjoy, if you want me to do it again, or if there's a particular artist or group that you want me to do a discography speed round for. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, the first album the Magnetic Fields released was 1991's Distant Plastic Trees. It features perhaps their best known song, 100,000 Fireflies, which was something of a hit on college radio and in indie circles back in the early 90s. It's as good as its reputation. Great one-liners, like, for example, "You won't be happy with me, but give me one more chance. You won't be happy anyway. I have a mandolin. I play it all night long. It makes me want to kill myself." Really, really great song. But the rest of this album doesn't really work for me. Frankly, the titles of the songs are better than the songs themselves. And their next album was released only a year later, but I still kind of consider Distant Plastic Trees to be a work of juvenilia. 3 out of 5. Okay, just made that. Their next album, The Wayward Bus, released in 1992. I think that this is the most underrated album in the Magnetic Fields' entire discography. The only bad thing I can really say about it is that it is a bit front-loaded. The first half of the album is a bit better than the second half, but it's still really good consistently. And when that front-loading is with songs like When You Were My Baby, The Saddest Story Ever Told, or Tokyo A Go-Go, you can't get mad at it. And I especially like on this album how Steven's songwriting has a certain intimacy and sort of personal nature that he would drift away from. I love how openly gay he allows himself to be on Candy, which he would later sort of play down in favor of just gender bending and ambiguity and just sort of fucking with your mind a little bit. I'm going to give The Wayward Bus a 4.5 out of 5. Alright, we're making pretty good time. Next up, we have The House of Tomorrow, an EP released in, 1992. This is only 5 songs long, and in total 12 minutes long. Short, sweet, and to the point. Each of these songs is about 2 minutes. They're what is called loop songs, which is something Steven does pretty frequently, where each song, the music is just like a 15 or 20 second loop played over and over all the way through, with only the lyrics and the vocals changing a bit. It creates a really, really great effect, and these songs flow seamlessly together, all the more because they are so short. And it's really to this EP's credit that that it both has 5 songs this great and that you can play it 5 times an hour. It means I've listened to it an awful lot. And with a song title like Either You Don't Love Me or I Don't Love You, just the title alone, you know it's going to be incredible. 5 out of 5. Next up we have The Charm of the Highway Strip, released in 1994. This for me is the Magnetic Fields' first straight up bona fide classic. It was originally created as a demo tape for, I believe, Atlantic Records. But the lady at the label said, I hate Johnny Cash. Stephen Merritt's got this deep voice. He had actually intended to replace all his vocals with probably with Susan Amway or something, a female with a higher voice because he thought it'd sound better. But instead, he just released it as it was with his vocals. It's the first full album where he took all the vocals, and it's incredible. Songs like Born on a Train or When the Open Road is Closing In are just so fucking good you can't believe it. And I'd especially like to highlight the lyric, Your eyes are Kansas City, in Kansas and in misery. I love that. Every song on here has been my favorite song on here at some point. 5 out of 5. All right. That's kind of hard. All right, next up we have Holiday. Holiday, really good album. It's sort of their unique brand of synth pop, becoming a lot more polished, a lot more streamlined and accessible. It's got some of their best known songs. A song like Strange Powers, On a Ferris Wheel, Looking Out on Coney Island, Under More Stars Than There Are Prostitutes in Thailand. A lot of songs I really love on here. I'd especially highlight Torn Green Velvet Eyes, The Flower She Sent, and The Flower She Said She Sent. All You Ever Do Is Walk Away, Maybe in My Car. This is one of their most successful albums. It's a great place to start. And I mostly enjoy the songs all about equally, but looking at the track list, I gotta say some songs are created more equal than others. And for that reason, I gotta give Holiday a 4.5 out of 5. This is kind of exciting. Alright, next up we've got 1995's album, Get Lost. This album took me longer to get into than any Magnetic Fields song, except possibly, any Magnetic Fields album, except for possibly Realism. It's a bit darker and moodier than their other albums. A bit less funny, but it hits you right in the heart. I love how at times it can just have this kind of these mindless pop songs, sort of like Famous, but then it can also have these really dark, almost creepy songs like The Desperate Things You Made Me Do, or When You're Old and Lonely, Time Provides the Rope, and Love the Slipknot, and I'll Be the Chair You Kick Away, but also has these great danceable pop songs like You and Me and the Moon, Save a Secret for the Moon, Love is Lighter Than Air, front to back, just a stellar album, 5 out of 5. Oh, man. Oh, this one's going to be fucking hard. 69 Love Songs. It's universally acclaimed, but it's maybe most notable for actually being 69 love songs, basically in 69 different styles of music, from experimental to a sort of jokey punk to sort of fucking everything world music. This is one of my favorite albums of all time, probably maybe even like my second favorite album of all time. It's certainly in the top 4. It's impossible to summarize this record. I'll just say this: it sounds instantly timeless. You listen to a song like All My Little Words and you're just like, the first time you hear it, it feels like you've heard it your entire life. It could be a week old or 50 years old. It's timeless. 5 out of 5. Alright, next up is their 2004 album, I. The first record in their so-called No Synth trilogy, when they put the synthesizers to the side and did everything with live instruments and acoustic instruments. The sort of conceit of this record is that all the song titles begin with the letter I. I really enjoy this album. It's got a very unique sort of soft rock, like an orchestrated soft rock sound to it that's unique in their discography. Some of my favorite songs they've done on here, songs like It's Only Time, Infinitely Late at Night, I Don't Believe You, I Don't Really Love You Anymore. The only downside to it for me is that I listen to songs 1 through 5 on repeat and then 10 through 14 on repeat a lot more than I listen to the whole thing. The middle, it sags a little. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Whew. Next up, we have Distortion, their Jesus and Mary Chain album. It's still all played on live, mostly acoustic instruments, but everything is just awash in these guitar effects, especially feedback, and, as the title would suggest, distortion. Even the pianos are distorted, and they had to find creative ways to like force a piano to give feedback. It's a there's nothing else like it in their discography, obviously. All the songs on here work really well with that unique, harsh sound that Steven's going for. You could say that they would work without that sound, that some of them could even be better without it. But pretty much they all work for me. I don't really have problems. There are a couple songs on here that I always find myself skipping, like Old Fools or Zombie Boy or Courtesans. Shit. 4.5 out of 5. Ooh. I gotta speed these up. I guess that's why I'm calling it the speed round though, right? Next up, we have their 2010 album, Realism. It's sort of billed as their folk album, but that's a bit misleading. This is a pretty alienating album. Let me put it this way: if you're a folk fan, you're not gonna love this album just because of that. A lot of this shit just sounds like schizophrenic classical music mixed with ragtime, and it's strange, genuinely strange. But after a while, I sort of fell for it. I'm especially a big fan of We Are Having a Hootenanny, which is either about like a Scientology indoctrination center, or it's about speed dating. And knowing Stephen Merritt, it's probably actually about both. But still, this isn't an album that I spend a lot of time sitting down and listening to front to back. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. Last one, here we go. Love at the Bottom of the Sea, released in 2012. This was the Magnetic Field's return to synthesizers. Basically, Steven had felt that enough time had passed that there were new innovations in synths, so he could make new sounds that he'd never used before or that no one had ever heard before. Great shit. In parts. I don't know why I just blurted out great shit. Probably because I'm watching the timer and I'm fucking nervous. This is, for me, one of the low points of their discography. The songwriting actually falls to a level that I hadn't heard since Distant Plastic Trees. Steven's great with cheap jokes and cheap melodies and conceits, but some of the stuff on here is so cheap you couldn't give it away. Stuff like Infatuation with Your Gyration, or I'd Go Anywhere for He or My Husband's Pied a Terre. The great songs are great though. Andrew and Drag, Born for Love, Your Girlfriend's Face, 3.5 out of 5. That was a lot harder than I thought it would be. And I even try to kind of rehearsed a little bit, and that was still hard. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that. This was Discography Speed Round for the Magnetic Fields. If you enjoyed this, let me know. Let me know if there's an artist you want me to do. You can contact me by email at driveinthedarkpodcast@gmail.com, or you can just hit me up on Twitter at DITDpodcast. If you're listening on iTunes, please subscribe. Please give me a rating in the iTunes store if you enjoyed it. If you're on YouTube, please please subscribe, and do let me know if this is something that you guys enjoyed at all, because I am just testing it out, and this is just something to do when I don't have an album I feel strongly enough about to review. I hope you enjoyed it. Certainly let me know if you did. I'm probably going to do a couple more of these this week, unless there's some massive backlash, which there can't really be because I'm so small right now, but maybe do Nas, maybe do Scarface, maybe do the Kinks. I'm thinking about doing Big Pun, even though he only had 2 albums and a compilation. We'll see what happens. I'm planning on doing more of these. If that's a terrible idea, let me know. This was Driving in the Dark, Discography Speed Round. If you don't know, Now you know.